Let me borrow a quote from Shakespeare from Otello to introduce our thought for today. Iago in Otello has this wisdom to offer us. Good name in man or woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, 'tis nothing, 'twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that flitches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed. It's a good thought to keep in mind. It has to do with gossip or rumors. When we gather in community and we gather in conversation, not unusually, somebody brings up bad news about somebody else. It's a rumor. Sometimes a person might come to you and say, I'm just going to tell you about this other person, but it's a secret. And whenever the person shares a secret like that, frequently enough, it's not good news about the person. And once you have maligned the character or reputation of another person, even if they deserve it, it's difficult and maybe impossible at times to restore that person's good name or good reputation. Cardinal Manning, familiar to us here at Holy Family, grew up in a little village in West Cork in Ireland. He remembers this story from his youth when he was a little boy, and he would serve Mass every morning. And he lived in that part of the parish where the assistant, the associate, we called him the curate, he would do the morning Mass. But the people in the village never knew if the priest was going to show up for morning Mass until they first looked at the window in his house. And if the blinds were up, they were going to have Mass. If the blinds were down, there was no Mass. And of course, in the village, there was a lot of conversation about the priest. He was lazy, he was unpredictable, he was unreliable. They're not sure if they're going to have Mass. And of course, they wanted Mass very badly, but it was uncertain. And so his reputation was discussed and how he was lazy or unpredictable. Years later, they will discover that when the blinds were down, the priest was out on the hills saying Mass for the freedom fighters. This came out later, and now all the villagers were in remorse for the bad news and the abuse of his reputation. Yet, he could never get it back. It's very difficult. Once the person's reputation is maligned, it's difficult to get it back. Keep that in mind, so that the next time somebody comes to you and says, I have some really bad news about a person, and it's a secret, and it somehow diminishes his reputation or his character or his standing in society, resist the temptation to accept that. Keep in mind, too, that the one who comes to you and says, I'm going to share somebody else's secret with you, only with you, of course, just between us, that's a person who shares secrets, and perhaps one day that person will go to someone else and say, I have a secret to tell you about you, because that person is not reliable. It's a gospel thought. So look for good things to say about a person. bless the person with a good thought or a good word, with a kind word. We had a saying in the old days, when somebody would remember a fault that another person had, we used to say, but it's a small fault. And once we said it's a small fault, somehow it deflated the conversation and it diminished the value of the bad thought about the other person. It's a small fault, meaning perhaps we have much greater faults ourselves. Amen.